Story. I'll have what she's having. Another post reminded me of some petty revenge I got on a friend who liked to split the bill, so I thought I would share. It started out from working together above a mall food court, where we would take turns buying lunch, then progressed to lunches out and eventually dinners, mostly with the group of colleagues and occasionally one-on-one. Those lunches were always split evenly, but we never had drinks or anything too fancy. Over the years, the group changed and moved on, but the two of us lived in the same neighborhood and still worked in the same building if not for the same department, so we would catch up over the occasional meal. After a while I noticed we were still splitting the bill evenly, but I was not ordering drinks and appetizers and desserts, and she was. Of course she'd offer me a bite of her cake, or a shrimp from her cocktail, but not half. I commented on it eventually, and her response was what kicked in the petty revenge. Her answer to my comment was basically, we usually have the same thing and I always share, so it's fair. I don't know why you would want to make the server do extra work. So my revenge was simple. The next time we went out to eat I waited for her to order, then told the server, I'll have what she's having. I got a bit of side eye, especially when I asked for a takeout container for my leftovers, and a big frown when the bill came. The second time she asked me to order first. I did, then she ordered her usual extravagant meal. Before the server walked away I said, her order sounds really good, I'll have the same. This time she suggested she might not have enough money to cover, so I suggested she drop the dessert and maybe not order the second drink. She frowned at me again and said never mind. She had the audacity to complain that she usually doesn't spend that much. I just said, weird, my bill is about the same. And that was that. She never invited me for a meal again, and when I invited her, she said she couldn't afford it. I still see her occasionally, and she's still bitter. Story 2. So you don't want me to use my phone on the table? Okay. First time posting here. My parents have a no cell phone rule on the table, saying it's to have a real family time, but sometimes there's just nothing to talk about, so my mom ends up watching Facebook videos on her phone. I asked her why I couldn't do the same, and she said that there are levels, and she's my mom. Few MC. I did nothing until this day when I was listening to a podcast with my wireless headphones and my mom called me to have breakfast. Then I had an idea. I was gonna go without removing my headphones and sat down. My podcast was funny, so I started laughing, trying not to be loud because that would be inappropriate. At that time my mom hadn't seen my headphones because they were covered with my hair. Then we had the following conversation. Mom. What's so funny that you can't stop laughing? Me, the podcast I am listening to. Mom. Hadn't I told you that you can't use your phone on the table? Me, yes, and there's no phones on the table. Well, just yours. Mom. You know exactly what I mean. Me. Yes, not to use phones at the table, and I'm not using mine at the table. You don't even know where my phone is. She didn't say anything, and since then I do that every time she does it or when there are no topics to talk about. My mom is not happy with this, but she can't tell me anything because I'm following her rule. Edit. Someone in the comments suggested that when my mom uses her phone at the table I start asking her weird questions. It seemed like a fun idea, so I just did it, and it was weird and funny at the same time. Question 1. If there are errors in the dictionaries, how would we know that there is an error? 2. What do you think would be the sound that a cloud would make if it could talk? 3. What would you do if you discovered that your shadow has a life of its own and decides to leave you to go on vacation? She was confused, but tried to answer my questions, and even my dad joined us. It was a fun dinner. I'll do this more often. Now to the comments. Nightmares fade. I asked her why I couldn't do the same, and she said that there are levels, and she's my mom. I just hate when parents are hypocrites. And it's as if they can't even be bothered to actually give a legit and logical reason. They just go, I'm your parent, and think that that's enough of a reason. What a lazy way to try to enforce their hypocrisy. In my family we have similar rule, but we all know that if the parents do it, so will we, because if you want to enforce a rule you should always be the first one to obey it. Do it by example. OP, exactly, smiley face. I thought the same, and the only reason I do it's because she's the first to do so. For example, when my dad is at home I never do it because we always have something to talk about, and he rarely uses his phone once he's at home, and I've never seen him using it on the table. Story 3. Baby's first malicious compliance. Alright, I was telling a friend this story and she pushed me to share, so I hope this counts. The year was 2000 and I was 9 years old. For context, I'm the oldest of 6, Mom was ready to pop out the 4th at the time, and it was a very hot July day. So my brother, 7 at the time, and I were fighting over a box of crackers on the kitchen counter. Why were we on the kitchen counter? Who knows, but I'm sure at the time, it seemed like a great place to fight over a box of Cheez-Its. So I'm trying to pull the box away from him, he's trying to pull the box away from me, and eventually, he gets the grand idea to push me off the counter. I go tumbling and land hard on my right arm, and even though I was only 9, I'd already broken a leg, my other arm, and all of the toes in both my feet. I knew what a broken bone felt like, and I was positive that my arm was broken. The problem was I felt almost no pain due to a very high pain tolerance from my rough and tumble childhood. To this day, I have a stupidly high pain tolerance. So, I know my arm is broken. I can't move it properly, I can't make a fist, and I can't use my fingers. So I go to my mom, who's trying to keep cool from both the weather and my second brother growing inside her, and say, "Mom? I need you to take me to the doctors. My arm is broken and I need a cast." Now, my mom would later become not so great, but at the time, she was still a pretty okay mom. And looking back on it, I can't really blame her for not believing me at the time. So she shooed me away and said, "I don't want to hear anything about your arm. You're fine. Stop bothering me." Okay then, I'm a good daughter. I will not bother my mom about my arm anymore. The rest of the day goes by with me playing around with my broken arm. I'm holding it up with my other arm while watching TV. I'm holding on to the swing with one hand, and I'm trying to teach myself how to write with my left hand because who knows how long it will take to heal a broken arm without a doctor. Finally, I have to go to my mom because I need to go to the bathroom and I can't unbutton my jeans without both my hands. She's been getting more and more annoyed with me as she's watched me baby my arm all day, and she finally snaps at me, telling me that she'll take me to the doctor, but if my arm isn't broken, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. I agree, not too worried because I know my arm is broken, and we head to the hospital. The entire ride is spent with my mother coming up with more and more detailed threats. If we get to the doctors, they're going to give you a big shot. I hate needles, but again, I know my arm is hurt, so I insist we keep going. We finally get to the hospital and the nurse says, "Oh, her arm isn't broken. But we'll give her an X-ray just to humor her." Guess what? A complete forearm break. Mom felt horrible and bought me pizza and candy, something we almost never got, and I didn't have to share any of it. So yeah, I don't know if this really counts as true malicious compliance, but I like to think of it as baby's first steps towards being the sarcastic lil shite I am today. Let's read some comments. Snooperifrals 2409. I went through the same thing with my mom. I'd had a head-on collision with another kid on a bicycle and my right arm hurt. My mother, the RN, insisted it could not be broken because I could move my fingers, but it ached and ached. Days later, Mom got tired of me whining about it and agreed to take me to the doctor. Along the way, she informed me that if my arm wasn't broken, I'd have to pay the doctor out of my allowance a whole 25 cents a week. We get to the doctor's office, they did the X-ray, and sure enough, my arm is broken, a non-displaced fracture. Smartass little me got the satisfaction of hearing the doctor dress down my mother, especially since she was a nurse and should have known better. I got a cool cast and got out of phys ed for 2 months. Oh, the bicycle was totaled, the frame was bent that bad. Story 5. Saw my cheating ex, we passed each other in the car. His face was priceless. Coping, so 11 months ago, my then husband left me for an AP. They had an emotional affair. It was textbook illibinalwy. Confusing infatuation with love and comparing a 13-year mature relationship with the limerence of an affair. During that time I met a man I didn't know. He would become cold as ice. Telling me how unhappy he was for years. How he never loved me. That I was perfect, but he deserved someone more special. Other days he would be a crying mess, hanging on to me for dear life. Looking at me as if I was just the most precious thing he was losing. He pulled a face then that I will never forget. It was like my old husband was in there watching this all but unable to help me or to change anything. He would well up, and it would be this combination of sadness, regret and shame. All it ever did was give me this unique feeling that I call hateful disappointment. I hate how much he disappointed me. How little he did to save us. I know AP came for him hard, but all he had to do was say no. That is it. But he kept feeding it until he was in so deep he couldn't go back, so I am no contact for like 8 months, have not seen him. All I pick up is that he is bringing AP everywhere and they try to explain they did not have an affair, but she helped him through his terrible divorce. It was over within a month, so, yeah, terrible. People tell me she is a bore and a basic B. I know that. I don't care. I keep joking, she must be looking really pale, as she can't get from under my shadow. Anyway, I heard he was happy with AP. He is telling the story of how she showed him what real love is, and how happy he is. She is the one. She gets him, he never felt this way. Fun fact, he said all this before about me. Anyway, I have been losing weight and I look hot AF. I get a lot of compliments that I look radiant. I was driving and as per usually I was singing and smiling in my car. Now I like cars and I saw a very pretty one from the brand my ex works for. It pulled my attention. I never look at other drivers, but I was looking at the car. It was my ex driving it and I only noticed because he startled and that made me look at the driver. There it was again. That sad teary-eyes face. Like the love of my life is trapped in the body of an incredible a-hole bound to make it work with a woman so far below me, it is ridiculous. I was too slow to respond. So he only saw me smiling. Like always, like the person I always was. Happy-go-lucky and full of life. I had the same feeling only now it is a bit muted. I just think, you sad, sad man. What have you done? What have you won? I hope she is worth it, but I know she's not. More importantly, I know he isn't worth it. By Felix. What's up everyone? If you like this video, hit the subscribe button now.